If you're a woman, you're 73% more likely to get seriously injured in the same type of car crash than a man. And that's what we're talking about today. Hi, my name is Nusha, and this is Deeply Simple. Grab your tea or coffee or just water if you're making good life choices, and let's hang out for a little bit. When you first get into a car, the first thing that you do instinctively is to put on your seatbelt, or at least I hope that's the case. We grew up believing that seatbelts protect everyone equally, and that they absolutely save lives. But that's not actually the case. If you're a woman, you're 73% more likely to get seriously injured in the same type of car crash than a man, and you're 17 to 20% more likely to die. I had to read those numbers again because they seemed so weird to me. I was like, there's no way that this is true. But it actually is. And when you learn why, a lot of other things start to make sense. To understand how this happened, we need to meet the guy that has been quietly influencing car design for the past 50 years. Meet the Hybrid 3 crash test dummy. He was introduced in the late 1970s, and he became the standard for vehicle safety testing. It sounds reasonable, except that this body was designed based on what engineers considered to be the average body at the time. And this average body turned out to be a 175 centimeter, 78 kilogram male military recruit. And once he became the standard, everything else followed. Seats, airbags, head restraints, and seatbelts. They were all designed around his body. For decades, the industry basically worked under the assumption that women were just smaller men. And there's even a term for this kind of mindset. It's called the Henry Higgins effect. You might think I'm kidding, but this term is actually used in design, medicine, and engineering to refer to the assumption that women are just scaled down versions of men. Except that biology doesn't work that way. Women don't just have shorter versions of the male skeleton. Our hips and pelvis are different, our shoulders are different, our spine curves differently, even our muscle mass and our bone density is different than men. And all of these things matter a lot during a crash. Take the seatbelt itself. Ideally, the lap belt should rest on your hips because your hips are designed to absorb huge amounts of force. And for many men, that's exactly where it sits. But for many women, it rides higher. Instead of sitting on the hips, it can slide higher and sit on the soft tissue on the abdomen. This can result in something called submarining, which is exactly what it sounds like. During a crash, your body slides underneath the belt instead of being securely held in place by it. And that could cause your internal organs to be crushed against your spine by the seatbelt. It's a terrifying injury, and unfortunately, it's very real. One person who experienced this firsthand was Maria Weston Kuhn. She was 19 years old at the time and was riding in the backseat of her family's car in 2019. Everything seemed ordinary until another car crossed into their lane and they were suddenly in a head-on collision. What makes her story so shocking is who got hurt. Her dad was driving and her brother was riding in the front passenger seat. Instinctively, you'd think that they would have worse injuries because they were closer to the point of impact. But they got away with relatively minor injuries. Maria and her mother were sitting in the back seats and they weren't nearly as fortunate. Maria was wearing her seatbelt, exactly as you should. She did everything right. But during the crash, her seatbelt didn't stay on her hips. It rode higher up onto her abdomen. And when her body was thrown forward, the seatbelt compressed her intestines against her spine with enormous force. The damage was catastrophic. She was rushed into emergency surgery. And her recovery took months, and even after that, the experience stayed with her. She couldn't stop asking one question. How can wearing my seatbelt, which is supposed to protect me, lead to such serious injuries? And she started digging into more research, and she realized that she wasn't an isolated case. Women all over the world had been experiencing this similar pattern of injuries over decades. That realization changed the course of her life. Instead of moving on, Maria became an advocate for better crash safety testing, pushing automakers and regulators to realize that women's bodies are not actually just smaller versions of men's bodies and that safety systems should protect everyone equally. In our last video, we explored why women historically have worse and less pockets than men. If you're interested in that kind of thing, don't forget to check out that video as well. But it doesn't stop there. Women are twice as likely to experience whiplash. That is mainly because women tend to have less muscle mass in their neck than men, and during a crash, the neck accelerates differently, and that causes a lot of a strain to be put on the neck. Then there are the seatbelts load limiters. These are clever little devices that allow the seatbelt to loosen slightly during a severe crash. The goal is to reduce force on your chest. But for many years, these were also designed around the same body of that 78 kilogram male. And for many women, this means that the seatbelt is not reducing the force enough. And this results in a higher rate of rib fractures and sternum fractures in women. And pregnancy makes the issue even more complicated. Researchers estimate that standard seatbelts don't safely fit about 62% of women in their third trimester. Just to be clear, pregnant women should absolutely wear seatbelts, and they're far safer than not wearing one. But the issue isn't even wearing the seatbelt, it's that the seatbelt wasn't initially designed around the pregnant body. If it rides too high, it can put too much pressure on the uterus during a crash, which is one of the leading causes of fetal death in vehicle trauma. Now you might be thinking, they've surely fixed this by now, right? Well, kind of. I mean, it's worth noting that the Maria Weston Kuhn incident happened in 2019, but since 2003, regulators have been using what's called a 5th percentile female crash test dummy. But here's the catch. She's only about 150 centimeters tall and weighs about 49 kilograms. She doesn't have a realistic female pelvis, she doesn't have the spine curvature, she doesn't even have the same neck stiffness as women do. And for years, she wasn't even required to be tested in the driver's seat, which is not realistic at all. The more you read about this, the more you realize that this isn't just about a seatbelt story. It's part of something much bigger. It's what scientists call the gender data gap. It's the idea that we've often treated the male body as the default. And once you notice it, it's hard to stop, and you start seeing it everywhere. Smartphones are often too big to fit in the average woman's hand. Office temperatures are still based on studies done in the 1960s on the male metabolic rates. Safety equipment like boots and body armor are usually designed around male body sizes. Even in medicine, heart attack symptoms and medicine dosages have historically been more heavily based on the male physiology, which leads to higher rates of misdiagnoses in women. It's not always intentional, but it's what happens when most of your data is based on one group of people. The good news is, this is not an impossible problem. We already know how to build better safety systems. A Swedish researcher named Dr. Astrid Linder developed SET50F, the world's first crash test dummy to be based on the anatomy of an average-sized woman. There's also Thoro 5F, an advanced crash test dummy packed with more than 150 sensors that can measure how crashes affect the female body in much greater detail. And engineers are increasingly using virtual human body models that lets them simulate crashes using bodies of different ages, sizes, and conditions, including pregnancy. The technology is here. The only thing left to do is making it the standard. I think what's surprising about this whole thing isn't that seatbelts don't work. They absolutely do. But what's surprising is that we've spent decades assuming that safe for the average body means it's safe for everybody. And that average body turns out not to be average at all. A 5-star safety rating should mean the same thing, whether you're a man, a woman, or whoever else getting behind the wheel. Anyway, my tea is officially gone. When I first learned about this, I couldn't stop thinking about it, and I hope it makes you not look at the seatbelt the same way again as well. If you enjoy exploring the hidden stories behind everyday things, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. We also have a Telegram channel where we share additional resources on each of the topics that we cover. Here we take complicated ideas and we make them deeply simple. I'll see you in the next one.